You're watching WDAY First News, the news leader.
Breaking right now on First News, an overnight fire destroyed a garage and forced a Fargo family out of their home this morning. We have a team live there now with the aftermath.
And our overnight rain has turned into snow and ice in the metro. WDAY is tracking this winter storm. We're bringing you live team coverage of current conditions.
And the interstate behind me is closed. I-94 westbound from Fargo to Jamestown. We'll have live updates coming up on First News.
Good morning. We are kicking things off by heading straight to weather on this Thursday, March 14th. Rain has turned to blowing snow overnight, leaving parts of the interstate shut down. And
Storm Tracker meteorologist Jared Piepenberg is tracking the wide variety of conditions as this storm is hitting the region.
Yeah, it's a huge system. The center low now just way down to the south of us. On the back side of that, having the snow. Ahead of it, had rain over parts of Minnesota. Still the case here this morning. If you heard Andrew out there yelling into the microphone, you might be wondering why he was doing that, because it is so windy out there. I'm guessing that it's just so loud for himself out and about. So very windy conditions across much of the Dakotas for today. Eventually that'll filter into Minnesota. So we do have the blizzard warning here for the eastern half of the state into northwestern Minnesota, and some winter weather advisories surrounding it there. But expecting some very, very strong winds here. So once the snow develops again, it is going to be whipping around here. And I'm thinking give it a couple more hours and eventually we'll start to see some more snow back in Fargo Moorhead. But right now, just very windy, temperature pretty comfortable right at 32, but roads very, very slippery out there and pretty slushy. We have some ponding going on from some of the rain we got last night and the melting of snow. Visibility is kind of reduced in much of the area just due to some of the cloud deck, the low cloud deck, and some snow and blowing snow over eastern parts of North Dakota. We've already had a report of 12 inches in Ellendale. If you don't know where that's at, it's kind of in southeastern parts of the state, pretty close to the border there with South Dakota. So just a ways south of Jamestown. Snow will continue throughout the afternoon and eventually we'll move back into the Fargo Moorhead area, southern parts of the valley by this evening. It looks like a lot of that will slowly be coming to an end, but I still think travel today, once the snow picks up again, is going to be extremely tough like it is right now from Jamestown up to Grand Forks and parts of our area. Temperatures, though, holding pretty steady throughout most of the day. Coffee forecast coming up here in just a little bit. We have some snow, some rain that's still continuing out there, and it is going to be very windy. I'll be going over some of those potential wind speeds here throughout the day.
Well, there are several no travel advisories throughout North Dakota as this storm continues to push its way through the region. And
WDAY meteorologist Andrew Whitmire is joining us right now from I-94. Good morning, Andrew.
Hey, good morning, Rob and Sarah. If you're wondering what's going on right now in Fargo Moorhead as far as the weather is concerned out on the roadways, we're not dealing with any reduced visibility. But if you're trying to head westbound on I-94, we're right now off of Veterans Boulevard right now in Fargo. And this is where if you're heading westbound, you will have to get off the interstate. The interstate is closed, both west and eastbound from Fargo all the way towards Jamestown. It's a $250 fine if you do pass this barrier today. And the road is closed due to blowing and drifting snow out across western portions of Cass County, and that goes all the way into portions of Stutzman County, and that will be the case as we go throughout the rest of the morning. But what I want to show you here is this slush here. This is what we're dealing with on area roadways here in the metro and across some portions of northwestern Minnesota, and this is going to end up freezing up as we go throughout the daytime hours, and we have these gusty winds, and once we get some more snowfall here in the metro and other portions of the Red River Valley, we'll continue to see blizzard conditions and road conditions deteriorate. We'll continue our live updates all morning long on First News.
All right, thank you, Andrew. And because of that nasty weather outside, there, of course, have been dozens of closures.
And WDAY reporter Bailey Verton is joining us in studio right now to lay it all out. Good morning, Bailey.
Good morning, Rob. Good morning, Sarah. Yeah, around 100 schools have already called off school yesterday for today. Some school districts, like Fargo Public Schools, are on spring break this week. However, they will not be having any practices or activities. Grand Forks and East Grand Forks schools are canceled, and Moorhead and West Fargo are also canceled. For the full list of closures, you can go to our website at inforum.com. And several of our viewers sent in these photos to us this morning. The top left photo was sent in by Travis in Jamestown. You can see it's getting harder to see out there with all that blowing snow. The video in the bottom left was sent in by Dustin out of Ypsilanti, North Dakota, also getting some blowing snow, making it harder to see. And that photo on the right was sent in by Taryn out of Wahpeton. Taryn said that his apartment has a little bit of flooding going on. If you'd like to show us what it looks like where you are right now, you can send us photos or videos to our Facebook page. Back to you guys.
And First News is also staying on top of flight delays and cancellations for you this morning, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah, there sure are. Right now, 5 of the 7 departures out of Hector International are canceled. Those include flights headed to Minneapolis, Chicago, and Denver. One flight to Minneapolis, scheduled to leave at 6:45, is delayed. The only flight that's on time this morning is an American Airlines flight to Dallas. WDAY News will keep you updated on flight schedules throughout First News. And meanwhile, there are emergency declarations in both Fargo and West Fargo right now.
All non-emergency offices are closed today. That includes libraries and city hall departments. Mount Bus will be shut down, so will Cass Public Health. There's no garbage pickup either. Snow plowing services will continue and public safety agencies will be in full operation. It's a similar story in Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. City and county offices are closed today. Garbage pickup is delayed by a day.
And we're following breaking news out of Fargo this morning. 2 people have a random stranger to thank for saving them and their cats from a house fire.
According to the Fargo Fire Department, a passerby saw the fire in a house on the 10th Street North near Fargo Dome around 1:45 this morning. The 2 people inside were able to get out safely. Firefighters then went into the home and saved several cats who were trapped inside. That same passerby dug out a fire hydrant across the street. Firefighters say the engine was on scene and was running out of water and had to have the hydrant to be dug out. Now, the damage to the home would have been much worse. Right now, the fire department believes the fire began in the garage and then spread to the house. WDAY is still working to learn the cause.
And new overnight, fire crews in Fargo responded to a truck fire that they described as well involved. Thankfully, crews say the damage from that fire was contained only to that truck. Here's a look at exclusive video that our WDAY crew got at the scene this morning. It all started around midnight on the 3100 block of 41st Street South. Fire crews were able to get those flames put out in about 5 minutes. The truck is a total loss. Crews say no one was hurt, and right now, we're still working to find out what caused that fire.
And Grand Forks police are asking the public for help as they investigate a discharged firearm at the Ambassador Hotel.
Police were called to the Ambassador Hotel around 7:25 last night to a discharged firearm. A single round was fired from a handgun. A bullet hit a window, but nobody was injured. This is an ongoing investigation. If you have any information, call Grand Forks Police at 701-787-8000.
And this morning, WDAY has learned a police officer was justified for shooting back at a man who wounded a fellow police officer and killed a canine officer in Duluth. WDAY News first told you about the deadly standoff back in January. They were responding to a domestic assault that turned into a standoff. 20-year police veteran officer Dale Marcus fired a single round at the suspect that night. 27-year-old Taylor Joseph Turek shot 7 times at the police officers. Canine Officer Haas was killed after being struck twice in the chest by bullets. His handler, Officer Aaron Haller, was also struck, but he made a full recovery. St. Louis County Attorney Mark Rubin just called Marcus's return fire justified. The Minnesota BCA turned over their investigation to Rubin last month.
Texas Democrat Beto O'Rourke may have just announced that he'll be running for president in 2020, but it's still not clear. The former congressman texted a reporter at the El Paso news station KTSM last night saying, quote, "I'm really proud of what El Paso represents. It's a big part of why I'm running." He was also quoted in a Vanity Fair article yesterday saying he's, quote, "just born to be in it." But we may learn more about his intentions later today. O'Rourke is scheduled to travel to Iowa for a multi-day tour, which is the first caucus state in the Democratic primary race.
A bill that would extend the statute of limitations for sex crimes against minors is now headed to Governor Doug Burgum's desk.
Right now, victims have 10 years to come forward to prosecute sex crimes. If signed, this bill would more than double that to 21 years. Representative Mike Brandenburg championed the bill. His wife said she was sexually abused as a child, but didn't come forward until the statute of limitations had passed. Opponents worry that the bill will infringe on the rights of people accused. There was a long debate on the Senate floor about House Bill 1425 before it passed with a 31-14 vote.
North Dakota drivers might have to pay more to get their driver's licenses.
Hear how much the cost might be jumping up if a new bill is passed.
If you've been watching here this morning since the show started, you notice Andrew's been outside. He's right at I-94, the exit heading westward out of Fargo, which is closed from I-94 from Fargo off to Jamestown. He just let me know that they closed down I-29 now from Fargo northward to the Canadian border. So very, very difficult, if not extremely tough travel conditions out there across parts of the area this morning. In Fargo-Moorhead, we've kind of had a little break from the precipitation for a while. Some drier air has been sitting over us, but it's very, very slick in some places, and others dealing with the blizzard this morning. It's 32 in Fargo, 29 in Grand Forks. A lot of us staying very mild here with some upper 20s to some lower 30s. Temps you see on the board here this morning behind me going to stay pretty steady for a while, and then they may just drop a couple degrees by this afternoon. So drier air has just been filtering into to parts of the southern half. The valleys have been kind of shut off from a lot of precipitation, but not too far down the road as you get off west of Fargo, off toward Valley City, Jamestown. Extremely tough travel. There's a report of already a foot of snow in Ellendale, which is just kind of in southeastern parts of North Dakota near the border. So some heavier snow coming down, and it is whipping around. Sustained winds have been in the 20s and 30s, gusts into the 40s in some places. So it is a blizzard out there, folks, where we do have the snow coming down. And I'm expecting those conditions to kind of filter in to Fargo-Moorhead here as we continue throughout about mid-morning or so. It's going to take a little bit before this starts moving a little bit farther off toward the east again, but it's going to be tough all day long across most of the valley. As you get east of Fargo-Moorhead, east of Grand Forks up into parts of Minnesota, have had mainly some rain out there. Really won't be dealing with a whole lot of snow, but a lot of wind today. Just all around, just not one of the greatest weather conditions days. It's pretty nasty in some places. Temperature forecast is coming up next. It's played a big part already with this system, what type of precipitation we've been having, and I'll be going over those steady and falling temperatures later on.
For the first time in 30 years, drivers in North Dakota may soon pay more out of pocket for their licenses. The House just passed the Senate bill to raise both commercial and non-commercial license fees. The price will jump from $15 to $30 if signed by Governor Doug Burgum. The last time the fees were raised was back in 1987. The increased fee is expected to raise $5.5 million in a two-year budget cycle. Non-commercial licenses are valid for 6 years, commercial for 4.
A new report says Facebook is now under criminal investigation by the Eastern District of New York for sharing user data. The New York Times reported yesterday that a grand jury has subpoenaed 2 well-known smartphone makers. It's looking for records of arrangements that Facebook had with those companies. They could be just some of the potential 150 agreements that Facebook had with companies around the world. In response to the investigation, Facebook told CNN, quote, "We're cooperating with investigators and take those probes seriously. We've provided public testimony, answered questions, and pledged that we will continue to do so." And another snow-filled roof is getting some work done as the storm continues this morning. Coming up after the break, we'll tell you how many businesses have been shut down at a Fargo strip mall to make room for the roof renovations.
And Jared tells us what's the latest on this winter storm in our forecast. A Minnesota man is facing 12 felony charges related to child pornography in Wadena County. 37-year-old Nathan Roth of Verndale is charged with a felony for spreading child pornography. That alone carries a maximum sentence of 7 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Roth also has 11 felony counts of porn possession involving a minor. That charge carries a maximum of 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine for each of those 11 counts. The FBI discovered the files on Roth's home computer using undercover investigative software. In a warrant, authorities found 259 images and 11 videos of child pornography.
Crews are working on another snow-filled roof at a Fargo strip mall. We were there as crews were taping off the area for safety. They've shut down all 8 businesses in that building. The Fargo Fire Department first got the call to the building on 13th Avenue South and Nodak Drive near the Ramada on Tuesday afternoon. They found the ceiling in a vacant area sagging. They checked in again this morning and found it in worse shape. The walls cracked and the ceiling is now sagging close to the ground because of a heavy snow load on that roof.
And heading on over to Jared now, temperature is really important as we continue with this weather storm.
Yes, it's been playing a very big part since yesterday and even this morning. We've been hovering really close to freezing. It's very slushy out there. And you notice the tower cam, if you just look at it there, or maybe makes you a little sick just how much it's shaking, but very, very, very windy. North winds at 30 miles per hour as we head throughout the day here, expecting those winds to stay about that. Not really much of a view in Grand Forks. We're just a little bit below freezing. We're at 29. North winds at 35 miles per hour. Do have the blizzard conditions up across the north. And in Detroit Lakes, it is pretty breezy right now, although winds have been backing off a little bit. It's still kind of breezy out there, a little bit of the flag moving, but we're sitting at 34 degrees at the moment. And here's a look at the satellite radar across parts of the area. Snow across south central parts of North Dakota up toward the northeast, northern parts of the valley. This area, extremely difficult for traveling out there. Visibility very low, very icy, about kind of that sideways wind is the way you could describe it. Southern part of the valley, we've had a little bit drier air wrap around with this system. So right now we are sitting pretty quiet. You may wake up and be like, what's going on? It's not doing anything outside. Thought you said it was going to be snowing. Just wait, it will snow eventually here. That's going to be moving back toward our area. Temperatures out there this morning, we have some 30s, some 20s, pretty mild in terms of temperatures, and they're going to hold pretty steady for a while. So Grand Forks, we're going to be right around that 30 degree range here with some snow, blowing snow expected throughout midday, even to the afternoon. By this evening, I could start to see this waning a little bit. And for the southern half of the valley, looking very similar with temperatures hovering just below freezing this afternoon. So it will cool off just a little bit. So highs today, we're kind of already there this morning with a lot of us in the 30s. Tomorrow will be a little bit cooler day, and it will be a little bit breezy tomorrow as well. So road conditions are still kind of expected to be pretty slippery even into your Friday. Blizzard conditions out there this morning. I'm going to continue to go over that for you. We have the no travel advisories. We even have parts of I-29 and I-94 closed. And of course, we'll be covering that all morning long for you here on First News.
Grand Forks emergency crews are getting ready to hunker down this morning as the storm continues. Coming up, we'll tell you the contingency plan they have in place for people around the city. Plus,
a wet, sloppy mess this morning into the Fargo-Moorhead area, which is creating very slick conditions. Other portions of the area are dealing with a serious blizzard. We'll continue to track these road conditions all throughout the morning.
This morning, tough go out there across parts of the region with this big system moving on through. Extremely difficult travel across central to northeastern parts of North Dakota, into northern parts of the valley where you see the snow coming down. We've had a little quieter couple of hours here for Fargo-Moorhead as a little bit of drier air has been wrapping around with it, but another round of showers moving up through central parts of Minnesota. It's also extremely windy out there, especially across parts of North Dakota, and this eventually will filter in a little bit more so into Minnesota, but mainly central eastern parts of North Dakota and South Dakota are going to be very windy. These are sustained winds right now, not gusts, sustained winds in the 30s for some of us, even at 35 miles per hour in Grand Forks. Here's what our recent wind gusts are up to. 46 Linton, same with Bismarck, 39 in Harvey, 47 in Jamestown, 38 in Fargo-Moorhead, 45 in Grand Forks. I'm thinking throughout the day here, winds could even increase a little bit more south. So factor in any bit of snow, and we are going to continue to have those blizzard conditions, which we've been seeing out, especially across open areas and even in city limits of some places over kind of central North Dakota up toward the north and east. There's already reports in Ellendale, which is kind of west of Oaks there, of 12 inches of heavy wet snow. This system continues to move on through, so even though Fargo-Moorhead we don't have snow right now, expect it to fill in here throughout about mid-morning potentially, and then it's going to get very windy and it's just going to be tough go here throughout the day. A lot of weather headlines out there, but the main one is going to be your blizzard warning. That is going on here throughout the day. I'll be going over the timing of when this will eventually move on out for you here throughout the morning coming up. Got more of your forecast straight ahead here with snow and the wind and even some areas of rain in parts of our region.
Grand Forks emergency crews are hunkering down for the blizzard this morning.
The Grand Forks County Emergency Manager has supplies stationed at the Alaris Center, the city's emergency shelter. The Alaris can serve thousands of people if necessary. With cold and wind expected to cut power to homes across the region, the Alaris will serve as a warming center. The Grand Forks County Emergency Manager says they won't be opening the shelter until after the storm is over.
And a tarp now covers part of Centennial Elementary's roof after a partial collapse. Yesterday, crews put a big tarp over the top of the roof with roughly a dozen workers repairing damages. WDAY learned today that the damage was contained to an office space near the gymnasium. The 500 students are off this week for spring break. And with all the snow on the streets, crews are asking people to move their cars out of the way.
Coming up, we'll tell you what's keeping crews from cleaning those streets and why parking is a problem. Plus,
you can still see some lights behind me as Fargo fire crews are still investigating the cause of an early morning house fire. We'll have all those details coming up.
Well, just before 2 o'clock this morning, the Fargo Fire Department responded to a house fire in North Fargo.
WDAY was the first crew on scene, and that's where our reporter Emily Olson joins us live to show us what's left. Emily?
Rob, Sarah, good morning. We are here on 10th Street North in North Fargo, and this is what is left of a garage after an early morning fire around 2 o'clock. Now, crews did arrive at 1:45 to be exact, and they knocked down this fire in just 10 minutes. 2 people were inside the home. Actually, a cab driver alerted them that their home was on fire. They got out safely, as well as several of their animals. Now, one of the reasons why this fire was knocked down so quickly was someone actually unburied a fire hydrant from across the street for fire crews as they were running out of water, which definitely helped them put this fire out in just 10 minutes. Now, the cause of this fire is still under investigation. The 2 people that lived in this home are working with the Red Cross right now to find alternative housing, while their house, they cannot live in there because of all the smoke damage that is inside. Reporting live in Fargo, Emily Olson, WDAY News.
Thanks so much, Emily, and we'll check back in with her later on this morning. And in order to clear all that snow from this storm out on the roads, street crews are asking you to move your parked cars. Fargo Public Works is asking everyone to get their cars moved by Saturday morning. Many of the streets are too crowded, with parked cars for plows effectively to clear the roads. Some can't fit through at all, and this small favor will let them clean the streets sooner and get their jobs done faster. Fargo street crews have worked more than 5,000 hours of overtime so far this winter.
Verizon Wireless wants more customers to jump on the 5G bandwagon. The company has announced it's rolling out a 5G service for an extra $10 a month. The 5G technology has only limited availability in the United States now, but that's set to start changing in the coming months. So Verizon and other carriers are trying to get on board with it. It'll be available to some of Verizon's existing customers in Chicago and Minneapolis in April, with the first 3 months being free. But customers will have to have Motorola's Moto Z3 device and pay extra for a special attachment.
In weather conditions like these, people on oxygen need to be prepared, as a power outage could put their life at risk. The manager of Sanford Health Accessories says these patients should make sure that they have backup oxygen tanks. They say medical professionals usually make sure that they have 3 times the amount it would take for first responders to arrive. Generators and backup batteries are also recommended. They say doctors work with patients to make sure they have backups ahead of storms like this one. Anyone on oxygen who has a power outage should call 911 for help.
And a new report from the UN is setting off alarms about the state of the environment. After the break, we'll tell you what the report says and how it could affect society as a whole.
Plus, check out these long locks. We'll tell you who this record holder is and what it took to get her hair so long.
A new United Nations report is triggering alarms over the fate of the environment and society as a whole. Authors say we need to drastically cut carbon emissions, improve water management, and reduce pollution on a global scale. If not, researchers say there could be millions of premature deaths caused by air pollution by the middle of the century. It also warns of a major species extinction event that could threaten global food and resource supplies. And your long hair may be a pain sometimes, but it probably doesn't drag on the ground behind you like it does for this Ukrainian teen. With locks that measure almost 8 feet long, Olena is her country's record holder. Her mother says she hasn't done anything special to get it to grow so long, just normal shampoo and conditioner. According to Olena, the only secret ingredient is loving your hair. Washing it takes half an hour, so does braiding it, which is one of the reasons she usually wears it up. She hopes to break the world record for her age group, and after that, she plans to take it on to the adult category. And Jared, if you could just tell us, or have the storm wrap up sooner rather. Some of us are trying to move out of our apartment buildings, you know.
I've heard of better days to move anyway.
I know. Bad luck.
Unlucky, yeah. I was just thinking about that girl's hair with this wind out there, with some gusts in the 40s and 50s, what that would look like outside. But anyway, this storm is still happening out there. If you're waking up in Fargo looking outside and saying, what's going on? Thought it was supposed to be snowing. Well, it's still going to move back into the area here. We just had some drier air wrap around into the system and kind of shut things down for a little while here for the southern part of the valley. West of us, though, extremely tough travel. I-94 is closed from Fargo to Jamestown, and I-29 right now closed from Fargo up toward the international border. So across eastern parts of the state of North Dakota, it is extremely difficult out there. We have a full-on blizzard going on with the wind and the snow combination. Visibility's low. Roads are very, very slippery, and it's just creating some blowing and drifting snow. Eventually, this will move eastward, where we have the snow over central to east central parts of North Dakota, and that'll start to move over I-29 again. So Fargo-Moorhead, I am expecting snow to develop again here throughout the morning. That'll be blowing around. Winds are forecast to pick up even more so than what they're at right now. We could have some gust 40s into the 50s at times here throughout midday into the afternoon. By the afternoon, I could see this start to break up a little bit. We're going to still have some snow coming down, but then eventually we'll have this taper off by this evening in terms of snow, but still very windy as we head toward the evening hour. So just a very tough day with the blizzard over us here for today. Temperature is just kind of holding pretty steady right around freezing in Fargo. 27 tomorrow, kind of breezy, especially for the first half of the day. Sunshine, quiet weather over the weekend. Check that out. A warm up next week. I think by midweek, maybe the end of next week, we will be talking about some 40s. So it's looking better next week, so some good news there. But in the meantime, our 7-day forecast here for Grand Forks, we have some freezing temperatures for high today. Tomorrow, breezy up to 24, and over the weekend, we'll be looking at some 20s to 30s. When I come back in a little bit, I'll go more over this blizzard and the no travel advisories across parts of the area.
Looking forward to those warm temps. All right, we'll check back in with Jared for a full forecast, and we'll tell you about a new policy from the Food and Drug Administration that could make it harder for minors to have access to e-cigarettes. Conditions are continuing to worsen in many parts of the region as the storm continues to push its way through the state.
And Storm Tracker meteorologist Andrew Whitmire is joining us live this morning to show us what the conditions out there look like. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Rob and Sarah. We're live right now just outside of Hector International Airport, where several flights are either delayed or canceled for this morning and likely will continue throughout the day. It's all thanks to this winter storm system that is affecting a good portion of the Plain States and upper Midwest, as well as these very strong winds. Now, what I want to show you here just outside of the Hector International Airport here, out on area roadways, is this wet and sloppy slush. And this is what we have to deal with today into the metro, and this will likely freeze up once we see our surface temperatures dipping back down below that freezing point later on today. Meanwhile, areas just west and just north of Fargo-Moorhead are dealing with a serious blizzard. They're dealing with a lot of blowing and drifting snow, and I do expect that some of that will eventually work its way back into Fargo-Moorhead, leading to some whiteout conditions even right here in the metro. And now I'll toss it into Jared with the live look at radar. Jared?
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, it's just very windy out there. Every time it comes on, it sounds like it just has to yell because it's that it's blowing that hard. So thanks for that report, Andrew. Yeah, it's very slushy out around Fargo-Moorhead. We've had some drier air sitting over us for a while now this morning. This will eventually move back in. So everything off toward the west, eventually this whole system will just slowly shift eastward throughout the day. So we've had some quiet weather this morning, but don't expect that to continue here, just maybe for a little while longer. Otherwise, areas that do have the snow right now, it is very tough travel out there. There's some heavier bands of snow, Edgeley down to Ellendale. Ellendale, it's still snowing pretty hard out there, and I've already had a report of 12 inches of snow. I'm going to repeat that, 12 inches of snow already in Ellendale. If you don't know where that's at, it's about straight south of Jamestown, just over the border there, or just north of the border on the North Dakota side. This does extend northward about between Fargo-Moorhead to Grand Forks is where you start running into that snow, off toward around Mayville or so, and then have some heavier snow in some places up there up toward the international border. I-29 is closed from Fargo to the international border here, even though there isn't any snow just north of Fargo-Moorhead. We are expecting this to fill in. West of Fargo to Jamestown, I-94 is closed, so we have both portions of I-94 as well as I-29 north, and then west of Fargo right now is closed. Minnesota side, just have some light rain showers out and about. We've had the heavier rain last night, then a little break here as the drier air filtered in, but it's all part of this huge system that's just kind of barreling through. So there's a lot going on with this storm system. Temperatures have stayed very mild through the southern half of the valley to Minnesota, staying in the 30s here. As you get a little bit farther out toward the west, mainly looking at some 20s, but very, very windy. Here's our current wind speeds, not gusts, just wind speeds, sustained in the 30s, even at 35 in Grand Forks, 37 in Aberdeen. As we head throughout the day, those winds will shift just slightly eastward, so expecting more wind to pick up over the eastern part of the state. into the valley here throughout the day. That snow will continue eastward as well. Got this paused at lunchtime. You can see that I-29 corridor into northwestern Minnesota. Snow, blowing snow expected across parts of the area into northwestern Minnesota. And then by this afternoon, evening hours, a lot of this will slowly start to taper off. Although I still think travel, even in the evening, if it's not snowing, it's going to be tough go. Forecast storm totals, well, we already had that report of 12 inches down in Ellendale. So Jamestown, Valley City, we're going to be kind of on that nose of that of the larger amounts of snow down into parts of South Dakota. Grand Forks, we could end up around 3 to 6. Not expecting as much for Fargo Moorhead, but it's still going to be tough travel coming up here once that snow moves back into our area. I am expecting blizzard conditions just kind of surrounding Fargo Moorhead, maybe even some parts of town when those winds pick up. I'm thinking some gusts today, topping off in the 40s, even in some 50s. I wouldn't doubt it if parts of eastern South Dakota, eastern North Dakota have a report up to around 60 miles per hour for some of these wind gusts.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration just put out a policy draft about e-cigarettes and their availability to kids. It would allow the FDA to take action against stores selling flavored e-cigarette products accessible to minors. It would also allow the agency to take action against websites that sell e-cigarette products without verifying the buyer's age.
Well, this crazy weather that we're experiencing this morning has inspired one woman to send us her own weathercast live out in the storm.
I don't know about you folks, but I sure am enjoying this weather out here. Category 2 hurricane winds gusting at a wild 55 miles per hour, topping it off with 8 to 12 inches of snow, adding on to our Mount Everest snow hills.
All right, so she really is a true North Dakotan if she's enjoying the weather out there right now. So that's Kirsten Hoberg in Grand Forks this morning, and braving the winds with her was her photographer, Kelsey Nice, and she gave us all a good laugh in the newsroom this morning. But if you want to watch the full video, head to our WDAY Facebook page. We just shared it there. But and you'll want to see the full thing too, because she has you can see her. She's got a beach ball, and the wind.
She had a beach ball.
The wind takes it there.
Oh,
gosh, she was a hoot.
she was a hoot. We needed that smile, but it is probably a good idea to stay home like she is and not travel if you can today.
Yeah, exactly. Stay off the roads. A lot of places you can't even get on the roads right now.
Yeah.
Well, a weather balloon launch in South Dakota launched the weatherman right along with it.
We'll show you the crazy video out of Rapid City and tell you where they think the balloon finally ended up.
This morning, I got a picture. It took me a little bit to actually look at it and actually be able to see the water tower here in the background that Justin has sent this in from Colum from the picture there. So I think there'll be a lot of views like this, or lack of views throughout the day. So thanks for sending that in. Just a picture of the blizzard going on across parts of the area. Visibility has been kind of reduced over parts of North Dakota here, from Jamestown, Devil's Lake up to Grand Forks, around a half mile or so. Out of city limits, probably a lot lower to be expected here. Here's a look at the current radar. So that trend is east central to northern parts of the valley is kind of where it's at right now. And eventually this will shift eastward here throughout the day. Also very windy, so it is blowing that snow around as it comes down. And the wind trend could potentially even pick up a little bit here, more so than it is right now by midday. So even more blowing snow expected throughout the day ahead. By the late afternoon, evening hours, we may start to see a few breaks of that snow, but northern half of the valley, southern half of the valley, both expect the blowing and drifting, some drifting snow. It's a very heavy, wet snow, so once it's on the ground, really not expecting a whole lot of blowing around, but there's definitely going to be a lot of travel hazards out there, and I'll be going over some of those details coming up here not too long from now.
Well, Jared, you've been talking about it. This storm we're seeing right now in North Dakota, it's all over the country.
Oh, it is. It is.
Yeah. Stretches all the way down to Texas, and one place it's at is South Dakota right now as well. And a weather balloon there in Rapid City showed the storm's strong winds. Check this out. The National Weather Service launched a balloon yesterday, and as you can see here, the weatherman, he almost gets launched with it. You'll have to give it just a sec here. But these are like 50-mile-an-hour winds he was trying to launch this in.
Oh, no.
And the balloons are used to gather weather information, but it sends back information, and this balloon probably ended up somewhere in Texas due to the crazy winds they're seeing.
Yeah, so it has a little instrument attached to it called a radiosonde, and it takes a whole bunch of measurements as it goes up in the sky, but that one was kind of like just taking off about ground level there, but eventually it'll go farther up in the atmosphere. But yeah, crazy. He spun him around a couple times.
Yeah, he must have been pretty strong to hold it down as long as he did.
Yeah, and a tough balloon, too, surviving those winds. Well, coming up, fire crews in Fargo responded to a fully involved truck fire overnight. We'll tell you where it happened and the damage left behind this morning.
And Jared has been busy tracking this winter storm moving through our region. He'll be right back to tell you when we can expect it to end. New in the next hour of First News and happening later today, WDAY will be bringing you live coverage of the last Class B boys basketball tournament of the year. We'll tell you when you can catch all the action live.
And the bad weather has canceled several events around the FM area. We'll tell you how it could affect your schedule.
And an important deadline this week for all you ice fishermen. We'll tell you when you need to have the ice houses off the lake in North Dakota.
And this morning, we're tracking some blizzard conditions out there. It is very tough go, very nasty weather across parts of central to northeastern parts of North Dakota. So the blizzard conditions remain in effect out there. I'm going to be going over some road conditions, even have some roads closed out there. I'll give you an idea what you can expect here if you're going to try to get out the door and move around. Otherwise, some warmer temps in the next week. So some good news there. In the meantime, I'm going to cover the blizzard conditions and those road conditions, all that coming up here in the next hour. First News, which starts right now.